What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActiveMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I'm continuing on with Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. This is the 25th anniversary I'm celebrating, and if you watch my Austin Powers 1 or 3, the reason I chose this is because this is really where the franchise takes off. I know it's weird to celebrate the sequel, but this is probably one of the franchises where you would actually celebrate the sequel because the sequel is kind of, I mean, like the box office, the amplification on going from 1 to 2 is just unreal. I mean, they positioned this against The Phantom Menace in 1999, and it worked. And this film is the quotable film. Most of the people who quote the film are quoting either lines that are repeated in every film, or they're quoting specific lines from this one. They're quoting Fat Bastard. Get in my belly. And no, as a fat person, I don't feel like I'm being fat shamed by the existence of Fat Bastard. So, I did watch this audio description. It's very cheeky. It's very UK, and I loved it. The sequences where I sort of mentioned in the first one, I felt like it was sort of like they could have done more with some of the stuff that they were using to like hide behind and pulling out. I felt like stuff was from that film was missing. Here, I felt like they really tried to nail all of the things when Austin is naked and his crotch is hidden by various objects. And they found different ways of saying his nether regions, which I thought was clever. So, really enjoyed that. But I love Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. This is the Desert Island movie from this trio of movies. It's the second film. It's Mini-Me, rest in peace Vern Troyer. I don't know. I mean, I know it's one of those like blessings and a curse for him because he rocketed to fame sort of out of nowhere as a little person and was given this role. But he was given an iconic role that everybody loved. He wasn't given a role that people hated. But he obviously could never really live up to like what other roles was he going to be offered. So it's one of those things where sort of like Jaleel White could never shake being Steve Urkel, or Paul Rubens had a hard time being anybody but Pee Wee. Like sometimes actors just get attached to a role, and people just see Vern Troyer and they're like, well, Mini-Me. So I recognize that, and there's definitely a precursor here to Shrek with Mike Myers doing his Scottish voice for Fat Bastard. It's now sounds so much like Shrek when you listen to it back. You're like, this is really close to Shrek. He's just doing. But then again, if you know the history of Shrek, you will know that Mike Myers was not originally Shrek. That Chris Farley died while in the middle of the production for Shrek. So there's actually some voiceover work. You could probably find it on YouTube of Chris Farley doing Shrek. And Chris Farley was originally going to be Shrek. Just if you're learning something today, then you now know from my YouTube channel, you can learn things. I don't just sit here and babble on about movies. I do know some things about them. But it's a clever movie. It has a lot of, the jokes are a lot more resonant. The Jerry Springer joke scene was great. The little things that throws in the Alan Parsons Project, the moon unit Zappa, Show Me the Money. That movie's not even gonna come out for 30 years. Ass. I mean, like, this one was so quotable. I love laughing through it. I don't know how many times I've seen this. I would say 20. I'm gonna say 20 at least. For a while there, I was like watching this all the time. Like, so I think it gained a lot like up front. And then sort of Goldmember was good, but not like as good. And it kind of like, and then Austin Powers just kind of lost that flavor. It's just like everyone was quoting it, like people just thought it was like, it became too much. It's like when The Office caught off and then everybody was doing like, that's what she said. You're like, all right. So I got tired of people hearing groovy, baby. Yeah, baby. Yeah. It's like, God, like it's one of those things where it's, you enjoy being part of something from the very beginning. But then when everybody else jumps on the bandwagon, everybody starts quoting it, you're like, Jesus. And yes, this movie made $200 million, but it felt like it grew. Like, it felt like as time progressed, more people were trying to be Austin Powers. Like, it wasn't just in 1999, but it was actually like for like at least 5 to 10 years out, like people were still quoting Austin Powers, and you're just like, it's enough. We've beaten this to a dead horse. It would be like doing Schwing, which I think people did for a long period of time, and you're just like, I don't want to watch Wayne's World anymore. People who aren't funny are just over quoting this movie. There's a time and place, but don't overdo it. Um, so I think that's probably my Austin Powers journey. So I watched it for a while, and then people made it not fun anymore to to watch. I've seen it maybe like 2 or 3 times since 2010, for and then now. But yeah, like I really like this movie, and it always makes me laugh. Actually laugh too, which is great because I've seen it so many times. It's like, how on earth can I still laugh at this movie? But I think everybody was amped up for this. Will Ferrell's, you know, I asked me 3 times sequences possibly funnier than what he has in the first one, where you can hear him in the other thing. He's like, "Oh, I've fallen down, and I'm gonna try this. Oh, I can't. It smells gangrene. I smell almonds. It might be gangrene." And oh yeah. Anyway, that's good. The Doctor Evil drinking the mojo. I mean, there's so many little things here. Of course, Fat Bastard is, in terms of the first movie, which had like a different side villain that they didn't even really do much with. And then the third film, which has Goldmember, which is not nearly as interesting as Fat Bastard. Like, Fat Bastard is by far like the best like side villain of the 3 films. So, and honestly, Heather Graham is the best sidekick for Austin Powers, if we're being honest. No shade to Beyonce, but I I really liked Heather Graham here. I mean, she joins in, and she's got that same vibe as Austin Powers. She's like, this is what I do. And it's a nice contrast from Elizabeth Hurley's, who was like, no, I'm all business, you know? So I think this film works. I think it still works. I love it. And I'm happy to celebrate its 25th anniversary. Does it stand the test of time? I think Austin Powers has stood the test of time. And I think probably it's because of this movie. I think people still recognize who Austin Powers is and what he is. Now, as far as Gen Alpha, like, this is a question where it's like, I think there's enough of people in my generation that are probably still quoting this movie in their daily lives, that the answer to the question is still yes, it has stood the test of time. But will this still stand the test of time in 50 years when we're older and we have more movies and they haven't made another Austin Powers? I'm not so sure. I think this is probably a film that will end up dropping off as people sort of age away from it, and Gen Alpha doesn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a comedy that's a spoof of a different time period, and it was funny because at this time, even in my era, my generation, we were watching stuff like that 70s show. So the 70s references, even though I wasn't born in the 70s, I didn't live them, were still funny to me, like the 60s and 70s, because of things that I was watching that were from that time period already. Now it seems like there's less of that. So now it seems like Gen Alpha is getting nostalgic about the 90s. So I guess they could find this and get a resurgence for it. I mean, we have a Cruel Intentions TV show, so stranger things have happened. But I don't like, there's been always a talk about an Austin Powers 4. I just don't ever see that happening. So Mike Myers hasn't really been funny in a while. So he occasionally will do something on a lark that works. His Gong Show thing was like a lark, but it didn't like last in the long term. So I don't know. I think it's it will stand the test of time for a while, but it's also the kind of thing where in 50, 75 years from now, we might just reference Austin Powers as being like one of the classic screen characters, but I don't know that people will still talk about him that much. So film historians, maybe, I don't know. But currently, I still think there are enough people who know what this is to answer that question. Yes. So, and this is the reason why I'm doing the trilogy. The first one only made like 57 million at the box office. This one made like 200 plus, and then plus the international box office. And then the third one made less. So it makes the most sense to talk about it the year of Spy Who Shagged Me. So um, I'm going to give Austin Powers Spy Who Shagged Me an A+. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.